Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the stories of two newly independent African nations that chose two totally different blueprints for their future. It's a fascinating story about leadership, big ideas, and the incredible challenges of building a country from the ground up. I want you to start with this number, 3. That's it. That was the total number of college graduates in the entire Congo when it became independent in 1960. Just think about that for a second. It's a shocking statistic, and it tells you everything about the kind of challenges colonialism left behind. And really, this was the monumental question facing leaders all across Africa back in the 1960s. How on earth do you create a government, build an economy, and forge a shared sense of identity when you're starting from almost nothing? Okay, so to really get our heads around this, here's our game plan. We're going to explore how both the Congo and Tanzania carved out their own paths between 1960 and 1980, and we'll compare their blueprints for politics, economics, and society. And look, the task they faced was just huge. After decades, sometimes centuries, of being ruled by someone else, these new African states had to basically invent everything from scratch: new governments, new economies, and brand new national identities. So the early 1960s kick off with this massive wave of independence sweeping across the continent. These key moments right here are what set the stage for two very different experiments run by two very different leaders with completely opposite visions for the future. And okay, this is the fork in the road. The Congo and Tanzania become these incredible case studies in opposing ideologies. The Congo gets sucked right into the drama of the Cold War, while Tanzania tries to go its own way, to carve out a totally unique path. So you really got two opposing ideas here. One nation looked outside its borders, embracing foreign investment and picking a side in the Cold War. The other, it looked inward, pushing for self-reliance with an ideology it felt was rooted in African tradition. In Tanzania, this whole idea had a name, Ujamaa. It's a Swahili word that basically means familyhood. And it was the big idea of their first leader, Julius Nyerere, who imagined a society built on people working together, not competing against each other. I love this quote from Nyerere because it shows you what he was really getting at. For him, socialism wasn't just some dry economic theory. It was more of a philosophy, an attitude of mind, all about serving the community instead of just chasing personal wealth. Okay, so you have these big ideas floating around, but how do they actually play out on the ground? Let's take a look at the political systems they actually built in the Congo and Tanzania. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. You look at this and you think, wait, they both ended up as one-party states? And yeah, they did. But, and this is a big but, how they got there and why they did it were worlds apart. The Congo system was top-down and authoritarian. Tanzania's, at least in theory, was all about connecting with people at the grassroots level. And this quote from Mobutu, it tells you everything you need to know about his thinking. He's basically saying, hey, in our traditions, there's only one chief. And he used that idea to justify grabbing all the power for himself and his single party. All right, let's talk money. Because their economic plans were just as night and day as their politics. And they led to completely different results for their people. This chart just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? The Congo basically bet the farm on its incredible mineral wealth and on foreign money, but that led to a ton of corruption and a huge gap between the rich and poor. Tanzania, on the other hand, went a completely different route, focusing on farming and self-reliance, even creating a leadership code to try and keep its officials in check. This right here, the Arusha Declaration, this was a huge deal. It was this really radical statement from Tanzania in 1967, basically saying, you know what? We're taking control of our own resources. They put the nation's key assets under state control to break free from depending on foreign companies. But, and here's the kicker, despite taking these totally opposite paths, they both kind of ended up in the same boat. They got deep into debt and had to rely on foreign loans. This cartoon just nails that irony, right? You trade one kind of master for another, this time in the form of economic pressure. So it wasn't just about government and money. Both of these leaders knew they had to build a whole new culture, a new sense of pride and identity for their people, especially after shaking off colonialism. And you can see their different priorities right here in education and language. The Congo, well, education booms for a bit, but they stick with French, the old colonial language. Tanzania, they make this really smart, deliberate move to adopt Swahili. It was a language nobody owned, spoken across lots of different ethnic groups, and it became a powerful tool to unite the country. Okay, so fast forward 2 decades. It's 1980. Time to check the report card. How did these two big experiments actually pan out? Let's tally up the successes and challenges. First up, Tanzania. On the plus side, huge successes in society. National unity was off the charts, and more people than ever could read and see a doctor. But the socialist economy was really struggling. Farming wasn't producing enough, which led to food shortages, and the country's debt was piling up. Now, let's look at the Congo, and it's almost the exact opposite story. You had all this incredible mineral wealth that should have made the country rich, but instead it was a total mess. Constant political chaos, brutal authoritarian rule, and corruption that was just out of control. The result was a country with massive inequality. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that there were no easy answers. Neither blueprint was a magic bullet. The experiences of both these nations just go to show you how unbelievably tough it was to build a nation after colonialism, with everything from your own choices to global politics shaping your future. Which brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? What really decides a country's fate? Is it the grand ideology a leader chooses? Or is it the messy reality of the circumstances you're in, the colonial legacy, the Cold War, the global economy? As the stories of the Congo and Tanzania show us, the answer is probably somewhere in the complicated middle.